So, the last chapter seemed to get everyone excited, and during the course of it, we introduced 3 characters based on the submissions of our fans. These characters were Chouko Akimichi, Hebimaru, and Akuma. These OCs were very interesting to get to write with. I enjoyed incorporating your ideas into the story. I enjoyed it so much that I'm going to introduce a new team of Shinobi to play the role of secondary characters. So without further ado, let's introduce these characters. Members of Team 34 will be Sato Aburame by main protagonist. A member of the Aburame clan, he can use bugs to attack, sort of like Shino. However, his bugs can be imbued with lightning release. To help explain this, I think we're going to say he is a very special breed of Lampyridae beetles, or as we call them where I'm from, lightning bugs. I think that'll be an interesting way to make this power work. The second member of the team will be Akari Yuki by Winchester 795. This OC is a Kirigakure transplant who defected to Konoha for safety to escape persecution for the Kekai Genkai. They're from the same clan as Haku, and their abilities include ice release. And last but not least, we have a character by Aditya Jindal 099. They named their OC Joe, but requested us to give them a new name. Don't worry, friend, I can hook you up. I think their given name should be... How about Taka? The kanji used to spell Taka means hawk, and considering that you want this OC to have the Sharingan, the name could very well mean the eyes of a hawk. They're from the Fuma clan, which is distantly related to the Uchiha, but never seems to display the Sharingan. That being said, Taka is a unique individual who does seem to display it for some reason. Is it luck, or is there something else to explain here? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, now that we have these OCs included, I think it's time to continue our story. Let's see what we're going to be up against. Today, I plan it to be the first big mission for the 2 teams, and I'm interested to see how these characters will handle it, and what might happen on a personal level. Will they be pulled closer together, or will this spell doom for their little teams? I guess there's only one way to find out. Buckle up, Buttercup. It's time for us to get our ninja on. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you're subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Kai stood in the Hokage's office looking over a scroll. His face was troubled, and he looked like he was conflicted about it, not exactly sure what to say. After a moment longer, he spoke. I don't know if they're ready for it, he said as he put the scroll down on the desk and pushed it back toward the Hokage. Hiruzen looked at him over his knuckles. Kai, they've been in your squad for 6 months now, and all you ever let them do is community service. It's getting boring to them. Have they said something? He questioned. Hiruzen shook his head. No, they're very mindful of their sensei and aren't saying anything that could question your decisions, but they don't have to. Their faces tell all. I just don't know. This is a pretty big mission. It could be dangerous. Shouldn't this be relegated to Chunin? I'm making an exception. It's time for our genin to prove themselves. The Chunin exams are coming up, and Konoha has been lacking in displays of power. We're losing standing among the other villages. We need to make big plays to remind everyone why we're the first hidden village, and why we'll be the last. Kai still seemed distressed. But this isn't about them, is it? Hiruzen asked. Kai looked away. Hiruzen stood. You know, during your tenure as a Chunin in the Third Great Ninja War, I was sure you would make a wonderful Anbu agent when you got back. Your skills were perfect. I wanted to be Anbu, Kai said. Hiruzen nodded. But some people aren't cut out for it. You came back from the war, but you never really did come back, did you? He put his hands on Kai's shoulders. I know you saw some things, and that scares you, but remember why I made you Jonin in the first place. This is as much of a learning experience for you as it is for them. Don't worry, you won't be going alone. Another team will be going with you. Do you remember your old teammate, Keegan? Kai's eyes lit up. Keegan? Hiruzen nodded. His team, Team 34, will be taking this mission with you. You won't be alone. Kai continued to think about it. Hiruzen gave him a bit of a shake to get Kai out of his own head. Come on, Kai. Do it for your team. Do it for Konoha. Kai took a deep breath and let it back out. Yes, Lord Third. Anything for the village. Kai met up with his team at their local meeting area, the local Lightning Burger, as per usual. He got himself a breakfast meal that consisted of bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiched between 2 fluffy pancakes that tasted slightly of maple syrup. Grabbing an apple juice from one of the kids' meals they offered there, he made his way to the table where his team was already sitting. As he sat down, he saw that there were empty wrappers and crumbs everywhere. Hope I didn't keep you long, he said. Nah, Sensei, we've only been sitting here for the past 45 minutes, Hebimaru said with a bit of a visible smile under his wrappings. Sorry I took so long. I was caught in a conversation. That's fine, Chouko said. We've been talking about the new Kagemasa movie, Kagemasa Never Die Twice. There's supposed to be a tie-in game coming out for it that explained how he died once and came back. Kai pretended like he understood what she just said. After a quick thanks, he began to eat his meal. So, what's on the docket today, boss man? Hebi asked. More litter patrol, no doubt, Akuma said as he turned his attention to the window. Kai shook his head. No, we're actually going to be heading out for a real mission today. The team looked over in surprise. What? For reals? Chouko asked as she sat forward. Kai smiled a bit as he spoke. Yes, you see, Suna has a troubled history with Konoha, and because of that, Konoha wishes to extend an olive branch to them. We're to deliver a scroll that contains a very powerful kinjutsu, and in exchange, they'll offer us a scroll. By sharing secrets, Konoha is hoping to establish a closer relationship with Suna, and we, along with Team 34, will be tasked with transporting the scroll to the village and returning here with Konoha's prize. That sounds, Hebi began to say before being cut off by Akuma, like an actual mission. Kai nodded. We're supposed to meet up with Team 34 by noon. Can you guys get the bug-out bags I taught you how to make and meet by the gate? The group nodded. Kai smiled. Be sure to pack enough water. The desert is unforgiving, especially at this time of year. You don't have to tell me twice, Hebi said. Not gonna lie, it's gonna be refreshing to go back home. I might even visit some old friends. As Kai finished his meal, he stood. All right, let's go. I'll meet you at the gate. And so they all went their separate ways. Kai, having grabbed his backpack, fastened it around his shoulders and made his way toward the gate. By the time he got there, he saw that he was already beaten by his squad. Wow, you guys got here fast. We're just excited, Chouko said. This is the first time we've ever gotten out of the village for real. Kai smiled. It was then that a voice called out to him. Kai Kabanoki of the Deadly Nightshade. Kai felt a shiver run down his spine. Looking back, he saw him coming. Do my eyes deceive me? You've lost weight. Been exercising, I see. Kai turned around, arms open wide for a hug. Keegs, been way too long. The two embraced like brothers. Their time in the Third Ninja War had made them very close. For years, these two lived and died together. Along with Ethan, their mentor, and Imobi, they were a family, tied by a bond thicker than blood. How you doing, buddy? Keegan asked. I've been doing well. I see you've got your own team now. I do, Keegan said. Let me introduce you to them. He turned back. This is Taka, a member of the Fuma clan. That there is Ikari of the Yuki clan, and here is Sato Aburame, our bug specialist. I'm interested in studying the desert beetles, Sato said in a monotone voice, as if he were stating a fact that everyone should know already. I've heard they have unique properties. Kai offered a slight bow to the students. It's a pleasure to meet you all. These are my students. Kai began to introduce his pupils one by one. Keegan then spoke. All right, let's take stock. He held up the scroll. I've got the kinjutsu. Do you have the key? What key? Chouko asked. Kai looked over. He means this. Kai pulled out a small piece of paper. He didn't show them the contents, but on the slip was a certain Fuinjutsu key. You see, to ensure that the scroll doesn't end up in the wrong hands, it has a powerful Fuinjutsu on it that will destroy all information within should it be opened without the seal's key. One Jonin will carry the scroll, and the other will carry the seal's key. That way it lessens the chances that anyone unintended will open the scroll. That does mean we should travel separately though, Keegan said. If we traveled together, that would defeat the purpose of the seal. I agree, Kai said. That's when he pulled out a map. We will follow this path through the desert here, and you'll travel parallel about 3 miles off. We'll keep in communication via carrier pigeon. Does that sound like a good plan? Keegan nodded. Sounds wonderful. I'll see you there then. Kai nodded. I'll meet you there. And so Keegan began his trek with his team. Kai waited for a time before moving to make sure that there was adequate distance between the two teams. Now remember, when we deliver this scroll and key to Suna, you'll have to be on your all-time best behavior. You're envoys of Konoha, which means that the way you act reflects upon the village. Be self-controlled and honorable to the Kazekage when you meet him. Capiche? I'm looking at you, Akuma. Akuma glared at Kai. I can control myself, sensei. Think you can hold your weak constitution long enough not to crap yourself while you visit? I think I can, Kai said. And if not, that's why I packed a diaper. Hebimaru began to laugh. Now let's go, team. They began to make their way through the land of fire. Eventually, a pigeon flew in with a message tied to its foot. What is it? Chouko asked. It's a message from Team 34. It says that they just crossed the border into the land of rivers and should be at Tenigakure by nightfall. We'll meet up with them there. And so, as they made their way into the village hidden in the valleys, they found the inn where Team 34 was staying. Getting there, they decided to rest for the day. Kai kept guard by the window as Keegan secured the scroll, hiding it in a location where nobody would think to check. All the while, Chouko and Hebimaru were getting to know the other students. "Hi, I'm Chouko Akimichi, and this is Hebimaru. You can just call me Hebi though," he said. "I am Akari Yuki. That's Takafuma and Sato Aburame. I've seen you around the village before, but I've never really met any of you. What can you tell us about yourselves?" Chouko asked. "Well, I am a member of the Yuki clan of Kirigankure. However, when I was very young, my family defected to Konoha due to persecution by the citizens, who feared the use of my Kekai Genkai during the Third World War." Kai looked back for a moment as he heard Akari talking. "I have a question," Hebimaru asked. "What is it?" Akari responded. "I hope this isn't offensive, but are you a boy or a girl?" The entire room seemed to suddenly grow thick with tension. Akari smiled. "I am a boy." "Okay, I was just wondering. You've got a masculine look to your face, but your name is a feminine one." "That's actually part of the story I was telling," Akari said. "You see, my birth name isn't actually Akari. It's actually Akira. But when we were escaping my village, my family had to disguise me as a girl to hide my identity because Kiri was actively seeking me." "Why were they seeking you in particular?" Chouko asked. "Well, you see, I accidentally brought about a snowstorm through my Kekai Genkai." "So what?" Chouko asked. "Snowstorms happen." "Yes, but not generally during the hottest part of the summer. I was considered a threat and hunted by the hunter nin of Kiri. My parents dressed me as a girl and told me only to answer to the name Akari from that point on, until I was safe. But sadly, they were killed before we made it to Konoha." Chouko and Hebimaru looked down sorrowfully. "We didn't mean to bring up any bad memories." Akari smiled. "It's fine. Ever since then, I've gone by Akari. Really, I should go by Akira now since I'm safe, but I spent so many years fearing for my life that it just stuck. So now I'm pretty much just known as Akari." Chouko understood. "I get it. Trauma really does exist in this world, and even if we fight with a brave face, sometimes it exposes itself in strange ways. Not that your name is strange." Taka sat there thinking. "Why don't you introduce yourself, Taka?" Akari asked. "Show them your Sharingan." Taka looked over. "Akari, don't go telling everyone about my secrets," he said. "Oh, come on, they're our teammates. They deserve to know everything there is to know about us." Taka shook his head. "Sharingan? The technique of the Uchiha clan? But I thought Taka was a member of the Fuma clan. How did he awaken the Sharingan?" Akari looked around and then began to whisper. "I can tell you, but you gotta promise never to talk about it to anyone else, okay?" Chouko and Hebi agreed. Taka isn't actually a member of the Fuma clan. Honorary, yes, and through distant blood relation, definitely. But in all technicalities, he's actually Uchiha. You see, many years ago, his family lived with the Uchiha in their compound, but then came the night of 1,000 bloody tears. Taka's entire family was killed by Itachi. Taka was wounded and nearly died. It was so traumatic for him, he awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan at the same time as his regular Sharingan. It was because of pure willpower that he survived. He escaped to the Fuma clan compound, and they accepted him and healed his wounds. He has a massive scar across his back from Itachi's blade. Had it not bounced off his vertebrae, he would have been paralyzed from the chest down. He's okay now, but he's still hiding out with the Fuma clan. He doesn't tell anyone about his Sharingan for fear that Itachi might learn of his survival and come back to finish the job." Chouko and Hebi were both aghast. "So horrible." Akari nodded. "It was very traumatic for him. He doesn't like to talk about it, but it's important, I think. Still, you can't tell another living soul about this, okay? If you do, I'll show up at your house at 3 a.m. and freeze your toes off." It was then that Sato spoke. "I'm Sato, and I like bugs." Chouko smiled. "Awesome. What else?" "Nothing else. I just like bugs." Akari laughed. "Don't mind him. He doesn't talk very much. He doesn't have a tragedy tied to his backstory or anything, and I think that's good. Sometimes emotional baggage can wear you down, and he's as free as the lightning bugs he keeps under his skin." Chouko then noticed Sato giving off a faint green glow. Realizing what it was, she almost puked. She held it back though. "The world's full of interesting shinobi, all right." That night, they all slept. The students were allowed to share the 2 beds in the room. Kai was laid out on the couch, and Keegan was kicking back in the recliner. As the night wore on, Kai just sat there staring at the ceiling. It was always this time of night he hated most. Being alone with his thoughts, broken up only by the sound of a clock ticking in the background. He let out a sigh. As he kept laying there, the silence was slowly broken up by another sound. It started as heavy breathing, then a gasp. This caught Kai's attention. He looked out from the corner of his eyes toward the beds. Silence returned for a moment. He tried to close his eyes, but the sound returned. Kai sat up. Eventually, the breathing turned into a vocal reaction. There was moaning, grunting, He thought he heard the word no hidden somewhere in the gasping. Standing up, he walked to the bed to find Akuma clinging tightly to his pillow, teeth gritting. Kai stood there for a moment. What in the world? In Akuma's head, all he saw was the orange glow of fire, the sound of screaming, and the feeling of flames overtaking his flesh. He was back in that moment again, as it was every night, reliving it over and over and over again on loop. Kai sat on the side of the bed. Gently, he reached out. Hand on Akuma's shoulder, he gave a slight jostle. Hey, Aku, he whispered. Akuma, wake up. Suddenly, Akuma's eyes shot open, an orange glow in them, and he pushed away with a startled cry like that of a dog whose tail was stepped on. Hand forward, he released a blue glow in Kai's direction. Kai barely dodged it, the wallpaper on the wall eaten by the flames. Kai, standing again frantically, patted the shoulder of his flak jacket. Ah, hot! He put the embers out as everyone seemed to wake to the commotion. What's going on? Keegan asked, grabbing at a kunai strapped to his leg. Kai looked over at Keegan and then back to Akuma, who seemed rather embarrassed now that he knew what had happened. Kai then spoke. It's nothing. I accidentally startled Akuma awake. It was my fault. I'm sorry. Everyone can go back to sleep. Suddenly, everyone began to return to their slumber. Kai sat back down on the chair and thought about it. What was that about? The next day, as everyone got ready to head out, Keegan was looking at the wall. Do not tell the innkeeper. Kai looked it over. It only scorched the wallpaper. I think it's kind of ugly anyway. As Team 34 got ready, Keegan fetched the scroll from behind the nightstand. He looked it over. Hasn't been tampered with. You still got the key? Kai checked his zipped pocket. He pulled out the piece of paper. Yep, still here. Keegan put the scroll in his pocket. Good. If we're quick, we might be able to make it to Suna before sunset. Give us an hour head start, okay? Kai nodded. As Keegan and Team 34 left, Kai packed up his things and helped the others pack as well. They stopped for breakfast once again. After the team had their food, they set out as well. After some time walking, the forest they were walking in abruptly turned to barren sands. Home. I'm so home, Hebimaru said as he fell into the sand to produce a sand angel. They got up and continued upon their way. For quite some time, Hebimaru was the most joyous of them all, basking in the light. Kai, Chouko, and Akuma were all miserable though. The desert, Kai said. Nothing can grow here. No flowers, no nothing. Cactuses can, Akuma said bluntly. Cacti, actually, Hebimaru corrected. Die. Chouko elbowed Akuma. Be nice. As they walked through the desert further, they began to lose track of time. Even Hebimaru's excited spirit seemed to die down with the heat. Suddenly, a crow carrying a message on its foot flew to them. Kai took the message from the crow and read it. Hey, you guys need to meet us immediately. We found an oasis. Taka fainted and we're worried for him. Can you guys meet up with us at these coordinates? Kai read them off. He pulled out his map and located it. Hebimaru then spoke. I don't recall an oasis there, he said. Suna must have dug out a waypoint through these unforgiving sands. I say good on him. We need more of that. Kai scribbled a crude palm tree with water below it and an arrow. Let's head in that direction then. Hopefully Akari's ice release will help cool Taka down. As they continued to walk in that direction, they climbed to the top of a dune. Looking down upon the sands before them, they spotted a few palm trees surrounding what looked like a well of water. That must be it, Kai said. Hey, Chouko, check my pack. Do I still have some medical supplies in there? Under the first pocket. Chouko opened his backpack and looked. Yeah, I see a first aid kit and a ceiling tag for ice cream. Good. We'll have an ice cream break when we're here to help us cool off. As they drew closer to the oasis, however, something seemed wrong. What's going on, he wondered. Suddenly, the oasis disappeared. Huh? As they looked around, confused, they then noticed that there was a man standing there, a silhouette black as pitch standing in the distance, watching them. As Team 13 looked at the man, they suddenly noticed a pair of pinwheel eyes, displaying a very unsettling pattern of a three-spoked wheel, one that betrayed the presence of the clan killer. Itachi, Kai said as he pulled a kunai from his pocket. Suddenly, from all around them, there was an ambush of many puppets, each wearing a crimson cloak. Hebimaru entered action by summoning his own puppets. Shiro, Kuro, King Cobra. The three massive snake puppets appeared. His two arms splitting into four, he used two to control his snakes, and the other two produced weaponry to defend himself and others. The snakes began to engage the other puppets as Choko's arms enlarged with their body expansion jutsu. She began smashing puppets. Akuma would raise his hands and release a heavy blast of cyan flames at the puppets, the heat so hot that the desert sand was turning to glass below the puppets he was burning apart. Kai began to form hand signs quickly. Flower release, deadly daisy chain. Suddenly, from his arms sprang vines that flowered. He used them as whips, smashing into the puppets, ensnaring them and throwing them into other puppets. But the distant figure grew closer, his eyes still spinning. He approached so nonchalantly that he almost seemed completely unfazed by their abilities. And maybe he had every right to be unfazed. Kai knew that he could never do what Itachi had done in his lifetime. A missing nin, cursed as a killer of his own family indeed. But even living in infamy, his feats were the stuff of legend. The legend of Itachi was rivaled only by the other greats of the village, such as Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, and Madara Uchiha himself. Hebimaru sought the source of these puppets. He found him in the form of a red-haired teenager. King Cobra, venomous volley! The massive cobra puppet opened its mouth and fired a blast of poison, enough to kill any living person within moments, at the red-haired boy standing against him. However, the boy seemed unaffected. Hebimaru was startled. Huh? At about that time, 2 black flames struck Shiro and Kuro, setting them aflame. Akuma looked back and saw it. That's the most legendary flame of all Blaze release. The unquenchable flames of Amaterasu. Hebimaru attempted to take maneuvers to protect his puppets, but nothing he did helped. He tried throwing sand on the flames, but nothing worked. Impressive puppets, I must say. Surely you studied under the best, but you'll never defeat the master of puppets. It was then that Sasori's puppets attacked Hebimaru from the flanks, ripping his puppet arms apart, their weapons digging into his flesh. Hebimaru cried out as he fell to the ground. "Hebi!" Chouko cried out. Kai, realizing that the battle was about to go south, quickly pulled out the slip of paper that contained the seal key and swallowed it. Suddenly, before anybody could do anything else, Itachi raised his fingers. "Tsukiyomi," he said. The remaining team members were cast under genjutsu and proceeded to pass out. Itachi walked closer as Sasori stepped to the fallen Team 13. Rolling Hebimaru on his back, he watched him bleed. No better fate for a puppeteer than to die at the hands of the best. Itachi then spoke. "Enough. We must get these to our hideout. We must acquire that scroll." Loading up Kai, Akuma, and Chouko, they began to carry them off, leaving Hebimaru to die alone in the heat. As they walked away and consciousness slipped from Hebimaru, a single desert scarab climbed upon his ruined arms. A buzz from its wings could barely be heard. They were under for quite some time. Eventually, Kai came to in the darkness. It was cool there, and he couldn't see anything. "Is anyone there? Chouko, Akuma?" he asked. No response. Worry and fear washed over him as he made the realization that they had probably been killed. He recalled Hebimaru and almost fell to tears. "I failed him." It was then that the door opened. Itachi was there. "Give us the key to the scroll." Kai looked up at Itachi. "Never. You'll never get it from me," he said. Itachi sighed. "I had hoped we would do this the easy way." Puppets dragged Kai out of the cell where he was being held and brought him into the main quarters. They chained him down. As his eyes dilated, Kai realized that the others were there with him. Akuma was there, as was Chouko. And to his other side, Keegan, Taka, and Akari were also chained down. Keegan looked over, his eye blackened and his lips swollen and busted. "Keegan, are you okay?" He shook his head. "I fought with all my might, but I couldn't protect my team. And now they have the scroll. Please, tell me they don't have the key." Kai shook his head. "No, they don't have it. I swallowed it before they could get me." "Good. At least it's safe now." "Don't be so sure," Itachi said. "That slip of paper might be gone, but the formula still exists within your head. And whether you want to give it to me or not, I will have that formula." He suddenly cast them all under genjutsu. Kai's eyes rolled up. As the darkness ensued, Itachi appeared before him, hovering in the air. "You won't get it from me," Kai said. "I've done enough mental training to protect myself from invasions like yours." Itachi smiled. "Good, because I've done enough mental training to break minds like yours. I think all it will really take is prodding at your weak points a little." "Weak points?" "Trauma," Itachi said. "Yours, your team's, your friends suffering, you suffering. All it takes is a little bit of digging, and whether you want it or not, your mind will submit and offer up what I desire. So how about we pull all of the corpses out of everyone's closet until one of them drops the skeleton key? Sound good to you?" As the moon rose and night fell, Hebi was unconscious, hardly even alive. He did not feel his body moving. For quite some time he'd been traveling, millions of tiny legs leaving a trail in the sand only to be blown away by the wind. The starry night was soon concealed by the looming shadow of a half-buried pyramid. Entering into one of the openings, he was brought deeper into where the beetles resided. One beetle sat above the rest, a golden beetle that gave off a gentle glow like magic. The room was further lit by another type of beetle, a familiar one. As the scarabs proceeded to heal Hebimaru, Hebi's eyes opened to see Sato standing above him. "Welcome back to the land of the living." "Is that where we are? The land of the living?" "If you were dead, you'd likely feel a lot lighter," Sato said. Hebi sat up. Looking down, he noticed his wooden arms were gone. They'd been damaged during the fight. Now, all that was left were stubs. "Just like old times, I guess," he said with a sense of melancholy. Looking around, he spoke. "Where are we?" "Some structure under the sand. Normally it isn't visible, but the wind revealed it for the first time in 100 years. Or so I was told. Told? Who told you? Hebi asked. It was then that he pointed to the golden scarab. Her. She's the queen here, the great desert sage. Hebi stood and walked over. Hello? The golden beetle spoke. Greetings, child of the sands. I am Kepper, the great scarab sage, last surviving sage of the lost 4th sage region. You rescued me, he asked. I did, she said. I have watched you since the time you and your teams entered these golden sands. The moment I saw you face off against Sorcery of the Red Sand, I knew that you were worthy. Wait, that was Sorcery I fought? Hebimaru asked. Indeed. Once the greatest puppet maker in all of Suna, he has fallen from grace, throwing in with the dreamers of the rising sun. Hebimaru felt his whole world shift. Sorcery had been his greatest inspiration, and now he was his enemy? How could this be? Why did you call me here? Hebimaru asked. Because I am old, my child. My time is come and gone, and I do not have many years left to live. When I disappear, my way of life will be extinct. But I sense in you a strength, like a lone pillar standing against the wind and sand. I feel that if my legacy is to be left behind, it will be to you. What must I do? He asked her. The scarab spoke. Take my body and devour me. The power of the desert sage will flow through you, and you will take my place as the sage of the golden sands. I leave the future of this way of life to you. The golden scarab flew to Hebimaru's mouth. He was startled, especially considering this creature was willingly throwing its life away. Are you sure? He asked, trying not to clench his teeth by accident. The scarab spoke. Yes, my child. I have long since realized that my life has reached its climax. It is time for me to pass on. Do not worry for me. I go to a better place. Hebimaru seemed conflicted. Do not be afraid, she said. This is what I desire. Devour me and take my place. Hebimaru took a deep breath. Closing his eyes, he clenched his jaw. Chewing, he swallowed. As soon as he did, he felt the very power of the desert flow through him. He almost fell over, but Sato caught him. Hebi then spoke. I feel powerful, but I still don't know if I can beat Sorcery and Itachi. Between my loss of arms and loss of puppets, I don't know what to do. Where to even start? Sato pointed as beetles brought in the remains of his puppets. You can start with that. Suddenly, they were in a forest. Kai was watching from a distance. He could feel the minds of all the others there. Their minds had been linked by Itachi in an effort to capitalize upon their collective pain, as a way to force Kai to give up the secrets he held. They saw a forest and 4 people rushing through. One was Kai, and another was distinguished as Keegan. But who were the other 2? Ethan and Imubi, he said. It was the 3rd Shinobi World War. As they watched it play out, they entered a farmhouse as rain poured. We were fighting in the 3rd Shinobi World War. It was a dark time, Kai said. He could already feel tears running down his cheeks. I had received orders from Root, straight down from the top, Danzo Shimura himself. He said that this was a storehouse for Kitty's military, and that this food was going to the front lines. I was supposed to taint it and starve out Kitty so they would surrender and end the war. This is where you got your name from, Itachi said. Kai Kabanoki of the Oakwood Meadow? Chouko asked. No, Itachi said. Kai Kabanoki of the Deadly Nightshade. They used me, Kai said. They used me as a biological weapon. The memory showed him spewing toxic poison from his mouth all over the food. Tasteless, odorless, deadly to a fault, Itachi said. None of these civilians knew what they were eating until it was too late. It wasn't supposed to be fed to the civilians, Kai shouted. It was supposed to be fed to the warriors on the front lines. They were supposed to discover the toxins and destroy the food. But that's not what happened. Your intel was wrong. An entire village of women and children ate that. Every single one, dead, because of you. Kai fell to his knees. But that's not where the story ends, is it? Your Kekkei Genkai was discovered as the cause. Kitty began to fear it. Fear all Kekkei Genkai. It was then that Akari saw her village. A young boy, testing out the limits of his ninjutsu, Itachi said. A hot summer day. A bit of fog in the air as heat evaporated the nearby water sources. A sudden snowfall happened, and it was reported to Yagata, the 4th Mizukage. Without mercy, he sent for young Akira, who only managed to escape with his life. His village, his whole clan, killed. Fleeing the land of fire under the name Akari, his parents took up refuge in a very small village, called Blackwood Village. Akuma stood there, looking on. Itachi spoke. It seems fate has intertwined you all perfectly, all for this moment. Retribution. Akari was living peacefully with her parents when the hunter nin of Kitty caught up to the village. Fear, terror, Screaming. A massacre. The whole village was attacked, but they were holding their own. The village was home to powerful fire release users, blaze release users. But in the course of the battle, Akuma saw his family perish. In rage, Akuma cried out, his flames expanding in every direction. "It wasn't on purpose," he said as he too began to cry. It was then that Akari remembered the death of his parents. He only barely escaped Blackwood Village due to the help of Root, who had been sent to secure him. As the village burned, nobody survived save one boy. A young boy whose body was badly burned. 28% of it was charred, while another 30% possessed minor burns. Him even being alive was a miracle, and he was rushed to Konoha. What happened that day you seem to have forgotten, or perhaps someone locked it away. You only remember the flames. You didn't know it was your fault, did you? Akuma fell to his knees as well. The collective pain from Kai, Akari, and Akuma was building up, magnifying off of them to the point they were beginning to develop trauma. The whole team was experiencing the pain of each other and themselves. And all of this was according to plan. Itachi was going to break the group and force them to give him what he wanted. As everyone cried, the shared agony was devastating. Fragile minds beginning to collapse under the weight of their shared experiences. This was working better than Itachi could have ever hoped. He came to Kai and knelt down. "You don't need to feel this pain. You don't have to hurt. I can free you all from this link. All I ask is that you kindly give me the key. If you do, I'll end the link. End the pain. I'll even lock away the emotions for you. Trust me, I've learned a long time ago how to lock away one's own pain. You can return to the village, inform your Hokage the mission was a failure, and return to your normal life. Or you can resist further, and I can crush your very spirit." In Kai's hand, a slip of paper formed. It contained the key. "Good. Now give it to me." Kai began to raise his hand up. Suddenly, as Itachi stood there, Kai and the others chained up, there was a loud crash. A massive snake puppet, larger than even King Cobra, broke into the cave. Riding atop it was Hebimaru, wielding a crudely formed right arm, only good for controlling his puppet. His eyes contained the markings of a sage. Behind him, Sato stood. Sato held his arms up toward Itachi and Sasori. From his sleeves shot scarabs and lightning bugs. The lightning bugs, charged with lightning release, began to swarm them as these scarabs gnawed at the puppets of Sasori. Itachi wished he could form his Susanoo, but the cave was too narrow. It would collapse on them and crush them. He wished that he could use a Materasu, but if he used it on the bugs, they might fly into him and Sasori, setting them aflame. Tsukiyomi was useless because he couldn't even see his target, let alone cast Genjutsu. "We're at a disadvantage, Sasori," he said. Sasori attempted to command his puppets, but they began to collapse, turning to dust before his very eyes. Realizing that their lives were in danger, Sasori and Itachi pulled back, escaping from the cave. Hebimaru went to give chase, but Sato stopped him. "That's enough. We have our prize," he said. The scarabs brought to them the scroll. Hebimaru picked it up. Jumping down, he used his arm filled with sage chakra to cut the chains free. Everyone seemed to wake up, all except Kai, who remained on his knees, eyes closed. "Sensei?" Hebimaru spoke. Kai looked away. He was awake, but he was crying, ashamed. Keegan looked away. He remembered that day. It was something none of them had forgotten. He remembered when he had heard. That was the day their team officially disbanded. That was when Kai took his position as a teacher, and Keegan considered joining the military police. Akuma, now free, looked over at Kai. Getting to his hands and feet, he walked over. "Hey, Sensei." Kai looked up at Akuma. He knew Akuma probably wanted him dead, and maybe that's what Kai deserved. His mistake, his blunder, had cost the lives of thousands of innocent people. If this was the day he paid the piper, the day he was punished for his crime, so be it. He looked up at Akuma, expecting to see rage, but only seeing tears. Akuma lowered to the ground and hugged Kai. "I had no idea you were carrying something so heavy." Kai's eyes overran with tears. Akari walked over as well, knelt down, and hugged them both. "None of us could have known that that was going to happen. If anything, something good came of this. Because of our mistakes, we were brought together. We have a new family now because of it." Hebimaru stood there for a moment. "I must have missed something." As the group all hugged the three, Hebimaru spoke. "So, I discovered an ancient sage, and now I'm the sole heir of an extinct way of life?" Yeah, that's fine, Hebi. Now hush," Chouko said. Hebi sighed. Sato put his hand on Hebi's shoulder. "For what it's worth, I think what you did was cool." Team 13 and Team 34 stepped into the chambers of the Kazekage. As Rasa sat there behind his desk, he looked them up and down. "I see the sands were not kind to you. Was the heat too much?" "No, sir, it wasn't. Not when we have a valuable guide on our side," Kai said, pointing to Hebimaru. "He led us through the most dangerous sands and kept us alive." Rasa sat forward. Ah, yes, I remember you. You were the foreign exchange student, the puppeteer without arms. How are things in Konoha? They're very good, sir. I enjoy my time there immensely. I'm glad. You've brought honor back to our village. I'm proud to call you a shinobi. Now, how about you end your time in Konoha and return here? We'll promote you to Chunin, and you'll be free to teach the next generation how puppeteering works. What do you say? Hebimaru was shocked. Really? You'd let me skip straight to Chunin and teach puppeteering in the academy? That's fire. He stopped. Something I can't do. Kai put his hand on Hebi's shoulder. Hebi, you're so strong, and you've done so much to help us. But if your heart is leading you home, you should listen to it, okay? But what if... Kai hugged Hebi. We've only known each other for half a year, but in that time, I've come to see you as a member of my family. That's why I don't want you to think about us. I want you to be happy. Is your heart leading you home, Hebi? Hebi began to tear up. Yes, my heart's telling me to go home. Kai smiled as he too felt it bubbling up inside of him. Then you're free to go. I'll tell Hiruzen when I get back. You have my blessing. Now, may I have the scroll? Rasa asked. Keegan nodded. Here you go. Kai then produced the key. Rasa opened the scroll with both, looked over the contents, and then nodded in approval before offering up his own and the key. There you are. You may now leave my village. Keegan, Kai, and the rest of their team began to leave the village. As he did so, Kai's eyes began to overrun with tears. That was when Keegan put his arm around Kai's shoulder. You're a good sensei, Kai. Never forget that. Suddenly, from behind, they heard a voice. Hey, wait for me! Kai looked back to see Hebimaru running toward them. Hebi, Chouko called out. Hebi ran into Kai's arms to embrace him. Hebi, I thought you said your heart called you home. It did, Kai-sensei, Hebi said. It called me home, to Konoha. Then let's return home. After returning home, the two teams would report back to Hiruzen with the scrolls, listing the mission as completed. As Hiruzen looked over the scroll, he smiled. Well done, members of Team 13 and 34. The scroll is as promised. It was our honor, sir, Hebimaru said. Hiruzen smiled and inhaled from his pipe. He exhaled it out as his smile grew. You know, the Chunin exams are coming up very soon. I was considering waiting to ask your mentors privately, but I thought I'd ask now. Would you all think it proper to take the Chunin exams? All of the genin excited shouted that they would. Hiruzen looked up at Kai and Keegan. What do you two think? Are your teams ready? Kai and Keegan looked to each other and nodded. Yes, sir. I think they're ready. And that's the end of this second part of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. I tried to give everyone a part to play and flesh out the story between them all in a compelling way. I hope I did so. If you all enjoyed it, feel free to let me know in the comments what you think. We still have at least one more part to tell. I hope to see you all there. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when other videos like this one drop. And while you wait for those, feel free to check out these other great videos from our channel. You should see them on screen right now. Until next time, peace out.